Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the ES-30, which is a very interesting aircraft. It is a partial electric, partial gas turbine one, which is just a ton of fun. There's a lot of little things that makes this aircraft a little tricky to use, and I'll kind of take a look at those as we go. The first thing we have to do, of course, is get it ready for takeoff. So I'm going to go ahead and pop open that one real quick. Grab these massive chocks. I'm going to go give those a quick little tug and get them out of the way. Coming to the front, of course, so we have to get rid of both sets of covers, the static as well as the pitot. And press Shift-C and climb on in. Now, this is a fancy electric aircraft, and it's got a lot of really good stuff that it does, which I think is a ton of fun. And it also has a lot of little things that'll make you insane. You again? Jeez, she's always flying with me. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come wander over here, and we're going to go above our heads, and we're going to get our low voltage system going. Low voltage, if you want to think about it another way, this is like your 12 volt if you drive an electric car. I happen to drive an electric car, so I was really excited with this aircraft, but that's okay. With those two switches, it's going to get our low voltage system. It's also going to energize our displays. We're going to go through the whole Garmin boot up process, so you can see we're getting our attitude set. It would never be this fast in the real world. I kind of appreciate how quick that is. I can get into all the details of this another day. I'm not too worried about it, but I'm going to go ahead and leave that at full screen real quick, just to make it a little bit easier. There we go. That's the way I like it. So once that's taken care of, it's just a matter of getting our emergency lights on, kind of letting everybody know that we're ready to go. So I'm going to come down here, arm the emergency lights, set that to the middle position, just like that. We're going to come down here. We've got a couple pitot systems. We can get those all warmed up if we want to. Just go boop, 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 just like that. And notice how hard it is to see the lights on this switch. That is something I really wish they will fix in a future version, because it's very hard to see whether or not this light is on, for example. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to float our heads up a little bit here. Make sure our hydraulic system is on. You can push it. It's very hard to read whether or not that's on or not. You can see right now it is in the on position. By pushing those two on, you can just click it like that. Unfortunately, you have to read it. And then what I'm going to do is kick on the high voltage buses. These are your big boy batteries. These are not the messing around ones. And of course, if we had external power, we could plug that in and get some nice juice that way. But it's perfectly fine. I'm also going to double check to make sure my fuel pumps are engaged too. We're going to need those for the regular systems as well. And again, if I push that, you can get your low pressure. We're going to leave that in the open position. I really wish these lights were easier to see. I always feel like I'm missing a light switch somewhere with it, but that's okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get the fun part started. I'll go ahead and put this away. It's just fun to play with the heads-up display. Let's be realistic. We're going to get started. So we are a hybrid aircraft. We're not pure electric, and we are not pure fuel. If you come down here, we have two sets of handles. We have one for the electric motors, which are the insides, and we have one for the turbine motors, which are on the outsides. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and kick on my electrics. To do that, it's really basic. Yeah, click this switch, cover it. Click this switch, cover it. That's it. Electric motors started. That's it. And if we go outside, you can actually see they're happily spinning away. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're saying, hey, can you fly this aircraft on electric alone? The answer is a whole lot of nope. You could try, but you're going to be very disappointed if you try that. You're just not going to have enough thrust. Trust me on that. So what we're going to need our gas engines as well, basically our jet fuel or turboprops here. Turn those on. We're just going to flip these two switches into the up position. And all we're going to do is click this once, click that once. That's it. That's all we have to do. There's no other magic involved. Everything is pretty much ready to go. You can see our torque gauges suddenly woke up. And if we go outside, you can actually see the two turboprop motors starting. Now, one of the things you have to remember with this one is the turboprops are really there to get you in the air. They're not really there basically for the purposes of, if you want to think about it another way, cruising. I mean, you can cruise in the turboprops alone, and there's a lot of fiddling you can do. And I mean a lot of fiddling you could do because of this hybrid nature of this aircraft. But right now, everything is basically ready to rock. All the systems are set. We're pretty good. If we want to create a flight plan, we can go ahead and do that. Obviously, we wouldn't want to be sitting here at idle with our big propellers as we're kind of setting up our flight plan and everything like that. But like I said, for the purposes of what we're doing here, I'm keeping it easy today. Flight plan page, we're starting at Bradley International Airport today, KBDL, nice and easy. Press enter. Our destination today is going to be Manchester, New Hampshire, KMHT. Just going to dial that into like that. Our en route waypoints, we just have one. We're going to go to Orange, which is Oscar Romeo Whiskey. Press the enter key there. And now we're all set. And you can see that projects itself quite nicely there. And now it's ready to go. Again, nice Garmin display here. Keeps it really easy. You can't really see what's going on here, but it's more than enough information. You can see it's not a very long flight. Takeoff in this aircraft is a snap. What you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and put down one click of flaps, and that's as much as you're going to need. So to taxi this thing, you can go ahead and pop off the parking brake. Notice we don't start ripping or accelerating or anything along those lines. That's not unusual. As a matter of fact, one of the fun things we could do here is we can actually pop off the electrical engines completely just by shutting them off to conserve our big boy batteries. And we're running completely on our gas turbines right now. Advantage, of course, to our gas turbines is, like I said, they're burning off of gas, and we do have plenty of gas. And you can see the little guys on the inside stop spinning. The guys on the outside are still happily spinning. So we're going to make our way over to runway 6. There is no wind today, so they're basically going to give us the runway that is convenient. And again, we can do all of the work on this aircraft just with the turboprops. That's something which I think is kind of interesting. Like I said, I don't know how I feel about engines you turn on and off all the time. I mean, my wife drives a hybrid vehicle, and it's pretty crazy because when you sit at a light, the engine shuts off. And when you hit the power, or if you hit enough, the engine comes back on like the snap of a fingers. It's just wild. I don't know. There's just something very interesting about that to me. So we'll go ahead and make our way over here, and we can kind of get our last couple things all set up before we start ripping and taking off here, and we'll do that once we get in the parking line. Obviously, in the real world, we never go shooting over here like this. That's fine. It's, like I said, not the end of the world for us. Very, very easy to navigate this thing on the ground. It doesn't take much at all. I know you're very curious about this guy, and you can see we're nothing to see here, which is why I'm going to leave that out. All right, go ahead and brake on that one, just like that. Groovy, groovy, groovy. We're going to come swing over here, and we have our autopilot control panel. Pretty easy to use this autopilot. It's standard, I guess is what I would call it. So like I said, nothing too crazy as far as the different modes goes. We can, of course, dial in what we like to do. So we're looking at a navigation. You can see FMS is where we're going to be receiving our data, which is coming out of here. Perfect for us. We're going to go ahead and set our cruise altitude here. Keep it nice and easy. Grab that. We're not going to go up that high today. Of course, if you're blind like this and you can't see, one of the cool tricks you can do is if you Alt-right-click, let me change my view mode here. Alt-right-click, you can actually bring this up as a menu, which makes it really, really, really easy to see exactly what you're doing here. And again, we're not going that high today. We'll go up to about, let's see, probably 11,000 feet. It's going to be plenty for us today. Looks pretty good to me. I like that. That makes it easy. Navigation mode is already selected. You can see roll mode is set. Pitch mode is selected. Everything else is good to go. If we wanted to select our navigation source, like we wanted to do an ILS, we could actually hold our mouse here and hit that. Flight director is already displayed, so that's working perfectly for us. So go ahead and switch back to a normal mode. Now we're ready to get going. Obviously, we want all the power we can get for takeoff. We don't want to be sitting on the ground waiting around. So I'm going to hit those two switches, and because they're electric motors, they turn it instantly. I love that. I don't know. There's just something very not aviation about that is the best way to describe it. Let's go ahead and get rolling here. I should turn this on ages ago, but that's okay. Good to go. This is an interesting aircraft in the campaign, or the career mode, I should say here. I think it's good for lots of things, but it's a little different. All right, so we're not going to want to take off until we've got our power set. We are very, very underpowered. And I don't want to say underwhelming, but definitely underpowered. So I'm going to come down here. We're just going to apply 75% battery. Give everybody a moment to catch up. Notice the gas turbines take a little while. There's gas turbines for you. There you go, about 90% power. And that's lovely right there. I'm going to go push it just a little bit more. 95, let's go. Now, that's it. That's our acceleration. I know you're expecting like, oh, electric motor, let's go, like a car. No, this thing is, I feel like this is almost more of a prototype or like an experiment, more so than it is oh, we're going to be able to do this and do that with this fancy technology. And not that it's bad. I actually really enjoy this aircraft, especially in VR. But it sounds like an angry bees chasing after me at high speed here. All right, there's 90 knots. We're going to go ahead and gently pull back in the yoke. You don't need to pull back very hard, but you will find that this aircraft fights you a little bit. And we're going to hold about 7 degrees. Let it go on its own. Let it go on its own. Don't pull back anymore. You'll strike the tail. Airborne. Landing gear up. And that's it. I know you were looking forward to like this thing like ripping into the sky, but it just doesn't do that. It's just not that kind of aircraft, and it's part of the fun, I like to say. We're going to hold about 10, 11 degrees here. I'll go ahead and bring up those flaps. We don't want our flaps down past 150. We're just going to hold our runway heading for a few moments here, just for a few moments. And that looks good to me, about 600 feet. And we're going to go ahead and execute a right turn. In the real world, this is when they say contact departure. I'd be like, departure on 127.8. And we'd go handle off, and off we go kind of a thing. So now that we're climbing here, we want to get to our climb altitude, our cruise altitude, very, very quickly. Now, the reason we want to get there so fast with this aircraft is we really don't want to be hanging out at low altitudes where we have to use our gas turbines. We don't have a lot of fuel. We really want to be able to cruise on our electrics if we can. And a lot of times you do what I call the hybrid cruise, where you leave your gas engines on and basically just kind of hang out on them, like kind of helping push the electric motors. Because one of the things you'll probably observe is the amount of electricity we've sucked down already. We're down to almost 90% of our battery capacity. And we've been flying for 10 seconds. Again, it's an electric. It's a prototype. You're still working out the details. Go ahead and give it a couple blasts of trim. We're going to hold that lovely 7.5 degrees there, just like that. Delightful. Whoop, whoop, too much trim. little bit of nose. Whoa! A little bit of turbulence today. Nothing new. Welcome to Connecticut. There we go. And now we can start our nice, gentle ascent. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come swing over here. I'm going to switch on IAS mode, flip on the automatic pilot. IAS mode, of course, is whatever you set it to. We set it to 185. The nose will start lifting up in a second, once it corrects itself there. Upsy daisy, upsy daisy. Come on. And of course, if we need to make an adjustment, I can just go like this. Let's say I'm going to climb at 150 here. I can just drag that down to about 150, and the nose will start climbing up pretty much right away. If I don't want to do it that way, of course, I can come over to my indicated airspeed mode, and I can give this a couple little picks, just like that, and that'll go ahead and get us to an angle that I'd like to climb at. There we go, 175 right there. Delightful. Going up. Sweet. So we can see here that we're on pitch hold mode, which is fine. That's our pitch that we selected, autopilot and FMS. We're using the FMS for navigation, which you can see pretty clearly here. We are blasting through our battery very, very quickly here, which is why it is so incredibly important to basically get us up to that altitude as fast as we can. And here we are. Now we're ready to go ahead and throttle down. Now, one of the things you'll see here is we have an F2 and we have an FF. I did some poking around trying to find. It basically gives us the different opportunities as far as what our cruise goes. Now, one of the things I think you'll find very, very interesting is we can actually cruise on both types of motors. We can cruise on just the electrics, or we can cruise on the gas turbines. And of course, it's going to be highly dependent on all the different things you have kind of going on in the aircraft. Looking right now, to get up to our cruise altitude, we had to chew through about a quarter of our battery, which is not terrible. And again, I'm about 50% of my megawatts here, and we're doing 191, so we are cruising delightfully. If we wanted to go straight up to electric, we could. And like I said, we could also go straight over to fuel if we wanted to, and we'll demonstrate that process for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disengage our fuel engines. I'm going to go ahead and pull these two down, and what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to push that forward. Now, one of the things you'll observe is there's little bars across here, which makes it very easy to kind of see what power setting you are. You can see if I go to here, for example, this would be about the 80% power point that we've got. Now, those two motors are going to settle down. Of course, as you can hear very quickly, we immediately start slowing down. And we're going to start riding basically on the edge of our peak angle of attack pretty quick, since we're only pulling 0.74 megawatts per set of engines here. But again, we're cruising pretty smoothly. I'll fast forward a little bit to see just how slow we get. And you can see we're settling at about 160 or so, which is actually not a bad speed for us. Now, if I wanted to, I could give it just a little bit more kick to try to kind of catch it there. There we go. You can see that's about 161, 162. We're about 80% power, or not 80% power, 8.8 megawatts come per electric motor. And we're cruising just fine. And you can see here we're at 0.72 there of our battery capacity. Not bad, not bad at all. Now, that's, again, giving you an idea of just how easy it is to cruise on electric only, which I think is just so fascinating. And of course, if you're playing the career mode and you're trying to conserve fuel, this is a good way to do it. One of the things you'll observe, though, is we're well past our optimum angle of attack here. We're basically at 4 degrees up. So we're basically killing it, unfortunately, as far as consumption goes. So let's go ahead and bring in the fuel engines again. I'm going to come down here and pop up the two switches. And you're going to want to hit these two switches. 1, 2, just like that. And what they will do is they will spool up on their lonesome. You can actually see them spinning up just like that. You can hear them, too, if you're listening carefully. And the one cool thing I think you'll get a kick out here is as we start to really, really pick up that speed, all of a sudden, the angle of attack is going to start coming down. And, of course, these engines are going to be happily turning. Like I said, we got to give them a few moments to kind of get back up. There we go. Torque's coming up, and you can see our speed goes just like that. And that's just one of the things I find so fascinating about this aircraft. There we go. And we'll settle in right at the FF position here. Back the power up a little bit. There we go, about 180 is a pretty comfortable speed there. A little more power than that, delightful. So what we're going to do now is we're going to bring the electrics off. And bringing the electric off is incredibly simple. You lift up these two switches and you click those two switches like that. Now when you do that, of course, now I really got to push the gas turbines a lot harder than I had them a few seconds ago. So if we go up to about 75-80% gas turbine, you can see we actually are able to maintain more or less a higher speed than we would, of course, on the electrics themselves. Of course, for those of you doing the math real quickly on here, you can see we're burning 554 fuel per hour. If you do the math on that very, very quickly, you'll realize with 1,500 fuel, we only have about an hour and a half of endurance. But again, we're not running on the battery at all. Now, let's say we really want to get there and do our F2 speed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to re-enable the two electric motors. All you just click, and now you re-enable them. And I'm going to go give this thing a bit of a stomp here. About to engage in our first turn in just a few moments. There we go. That's basically peak right there. You can hear everything go. It sounds like so many angry bees. We're now past our yellow line speed, which would be the non-recommended speed. We don't really want to be going this fast. That can be kind of dangerous. And we're just going to back everything up just a little bit as we start to approach that speed. Again, about 230 knots, rather, is moving very, very quickly. There we go. And again, we're out of our... And once we're in the yellow speeds, naturally, our new problem, of course, is going to be the fact that we run the risk of damaging ourselves in turbulence. So you just want to be careful with that. There we go. So about 75% power, if you want to kind of think about it another way. If you're looking down there with both motors, gets us about 230 knots. And again, we're powering right through our battery capacity. We only have 2/3 of our battery left. And obviously, we want to be landing with about 1/4. Speaking of landing, we've already taken that first turn there. And we can see we've got about 90 nautical miles to go. We're going to leave us at our cruise speed here. And once we get to our top of descent, which is going to be at 33 miles, we'll take a look at just what we have left of the 2 power settings. All right, we're just hitting our top of descent now. So we're going to make our way back down to Earth. So I'm going to go ahead and select my altitude here. It's going to look about 1,200 feet here. And just as usual, whoa, same problem everybody else has. Wah, wah. There we go, 1,200 feet. Looks good to me. Perfect. And we're going to go ahead and initiate our slow descent. A lot of times when I descend, I like to run on the electrics alone because it just makes it a little bit easier. But we're not really going to be hanging out or doing like a holding pattern or anything. So we can definitely kind of go through right away. So as before, I'm going to press my vertical speed button. We're going to select the vertical speed of about 1,800 feet per minute, which is going to be plenty for us. There we go, just like that. Perfect. And that's going to get us coming down very smoothly. You can see I don't need a lot of power to descend. It's extremely tempting at this point, I would think from a procedural perspective, to go, oh, I'm going to shut off my gas because I don't need them. I can basically just use the air to run my electrics all the way down here. And by the way, you can see we got down to almost 40% battery by the time we were ready for our descent. Fuel-wise, we're fine. We could have run on the 2 turboprops for a lot longer, which goes back to my point of you're really using those to climb more than anything. So as you can see, we're descending about 230 knots. Obviously, in turbulent weather, we'd have to be descending a little bit slower at about 204 knots, which would be down here. But we're barely sipping gas right now, and we're just enjoying this nice little ride back down to the planet. Now, things are going to get interesting again during approach. All right, we're just about ready to do our approach. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cross midfield, and we're going to take a left and basically line ourselves up for our good friend runway 24 there. Slowing down, everything comes down pretty smoothly with this aircraft, and you can see we're running all engines together. This is an important concept. If we do not run all our engines and something goes wrong with one of the sets of engines, that could be pretty catastrophic for us very quickly. So it's important that we do have all that squared away before we get carried away. There's runway 6 there. Ironically, we took off from runway 6 today, and there's a 2-4, so we're going to go ahead and disengage the automatic pilot. And all we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and execute a nice gentle turn here, get ourselves into the left crosswind, downwind rather, and now we're going to start making our way down. So again, swing ourselves over to 6, just like that. Looks good to me. Come out of the turn. Like I said, it's a very stable aircraft. You're not going to be fighting it too much. Good time, of course, to get our lovely landing lights on if you haven't done so already. Looks good. Whoop. Don't need to climb. And we're just going to look out the left side here. Lovely. You can see there's beautiful, beautiful mountains off in the distance. Good old Manchester here. Start slowing down, and we need to get ready to go ahead and deploy our landing gear. Landing gear comes, and what we're doing here is we're just using the landing gear for the purposes of kind of giving us a little extra drag to get into our flap speed. You can feel the nose kind of pitch over immediately. We're going to go ahead and click in some flaps just like that. Give it a moment. It'll stabilize for you and quite nicely. Now, this is an angle of attack landing aircraft, which is, in my opinion, one of the easiest ways to do it. Looks good to me. Start our descent downwards. There's that runway. We're looking for that 3/4 point, just like we were a regular general aviation plane. Looks good to me. Next click of flaps come in. And we're just going to execute a nice gentle turn here. This thing is like literally in my way. Thank you. So we're just going to go ahead and execute a long sweeping left turn as we come in for landing. And let me pause right here for a second here. Nice. So what I want to share with you real quickly is we have an angle of attack sensor, and you can see we're in the yellow. Our goal is to get ourselves right here in the green during our approach. So I'm going to go ahead and unpause. If you see yourself getting higher angle attack, just add a little bit of power and let the nose come down, and that should be plenty. There's our lovely runway, looking good. We're going to bring in the last couple clicks of flaps. And we're just going to start slowing down gently. That looks good to me right there. A little bit of right foot. Last bit of flaps is really going to make a difference as far as the amount of lift we get. All right, one last check. Landing lights are set. Everything else is set. Swing this way. Looks like about 104 is going to be our speed here. There we are. We're right on angle of attack almost perfectly. Again, gentle approach, gentle controls. If you start sinking, just add a little bit of power. See how we're starting to sink? Just a little bit of power. Again, everything from this point on is conventional, except for the fact you are a very low to the ground airplane. So when you're coming in for the landing here, when we get to this point here, all right, go ahead and start putting the nose up a little bit, power down, and we're just going to let it settle. Nice. So we hit a little bit on the ground there, but that's okay. And we are here. Delightful. You can see we're kicking up all sorts of good stuff behind us. Welcome to Manchester, New Hampshire. So one of the cool things is, like I said, this is a nice hybrid aircraft. It does a lot of good things, and we'll go ahead and pull off the runway here to kind of run you through the shutdown procedure. As always, when you're landing, you want to go ahead and clean the plane up. Make sure there's nothing hanging off of it or anything like that, especially this time of year when we've got all that ice and snow to worry about. I appreciate the fact they got the... Oh, no, they did it correctly there, so I'm not worried about it too much. I'm a little too hard. So one of the cool things, of course, with this one is, like I was mentioning before, because we're a hybrid aircraft, we can taxi around on the ground using either one of our engine systems there. And usually it comes down to what battery do we have remaining. Of course, we want to clear the runway here. A little bit further, right there. Of course, we contact tower and with the appropriate tower frequency here. So we can take a look here. Our journey here, not a long journey, sucked down 3/4 of our battery. Fuel-wise, you can see we could have gone a lot harder with the fuel. We could have even disengaged the electric motors for a while and basically kind of cruised around. Of course, we also cruised at 230 instead of 180, which is kind of the suggested cruise indicated speed here. Shutdown of this thing is a snap. These two come off like that. These two come off like that. Once that is done, you're going to want to reach over your head, and you're going to want to secure all the batteries. We'll go ahead and hit all those just like that. Pop over our 2 low-level batteries. And one of the things you want to do is if you do want to refuel, if that makes sense, kind of a thing like that. If you were to bring up your little display here, whoa, got to grab it. Cool. One of the things you're going to have to do is when you bring this one up, you've got your mass and gravity and all that other stuff. You've got your checklists, mass and gravity. Come over to your fuel option. You can refuel by dragging the fuel. Go ahead and load an aircraft. You can go to battery. Battery. And you'll notice you've got each one of your batteries just like that. Enjoy.